Hello, I'm Jennifer Teller, the Programming Coordinator at the Westport Library, and today I'm with Ann Burmeister of Wakeman Town Farm, where she is the chair of the Animal Subcommittee. Now, during this difficult time staying at home, you may be thinking of ways to live more self-sufficiently, and one way to do this is to bring chickens into your backyard for eggs. Now, Ann grew up on a farm in Iowa, so she knows what to consider to make this choice. Hi, Ann.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for having me.
Great. So what should we take into account when considering starting a flock?
Well, I'd say about 4 things. The first and probably the most important is time. Obviously, they're live animals, so you have to be available or have somebody available every day of the year, about sometime in the morning and sometime in the evening at least. The second thing is cost. It costs a little bit to get your backyard flock started. There's a little bit involved when they're babies, and then your biggest cost is probably going to be some sort of coop and an outside run that's enclosed and protected from predators. The other thing is the sort of things that come with space. So you'll need room for that coop and the run. It doesn't take a ton of space, but say a backyard flock would be about 6 chickens. You should account for about 20 to 30 square feet of outdoor space and a small coop. And then the last thing is sort of the extras that come with chickens. You're going to have to do some coop cleaning, so there's a little bit of manure involved. And if you like to let your chickens free range, which we love to do, which is to sort of run around the yard when you're out there with them, they love to scratch and dig around, so you're likely to have to sweep some mulch back into the beds now and again.
Okay. So what are your favorite things about having a backyard flock?
My favorite things. They are full of personality. That is something I did not know until I had chickens, but they all have their own personalities, and they are really fun pets to have around. The other thing we love, of course, are the fresh eggs. They are amazing. Once your flock is fully laying, you'll end up with about an egg per chicken per day. So you'll make some friends with your neighbors too, because you're likely to give a few away. I also love the fact that they help with the waste cycle. So you can feed them your scraps from your compost. You can also feed them your extra oatmeal, leftover bread crumbs. My chickens every once in a while will get the cupcake that doesn't get eaten, and they love those. They're a little bit crazy for those. And so it helps on the food waste cycle. And the other thing is when you clean out your coop, it's also a really good source of compost. So you can turn that right into your compost pile, or even use it as mulch around non-food plants.
Oh, cool. That's good to know. So if someone has decided they're ready to start caring for chickens, how do they get started on all of this?
Yeah, where do you begin? Well, you'll see me. We haven't acknowledged the elephant in the room, which is I am in the bathroom. And this is one of the steps to starting your flock. So when you're going to start your flock, the first thing you need is a brooder, which is a small space to keep baby chickens safe and warm. In this case, I'm using my bathtub as a brooder, but you can also use a large like a refrigerator box or any sort of, a lot of people use plastic baby pools, that kind of thing, something with sides on it so that you don't have a draft coming in, because baby chickens get really cold, and something that you can cover with the top. So in this case, my top is the doors to my bathtub, but you can also use some wire mesh or something like that. So you need a brooder. You'll also need a few supplies from the feed store. You'll need a source of heat for the chickens. Baby chicks need to be at 95 degrees for their first week of life, and then you can take off about 5 degrees every week after that, but they need really warm temperatures because they don't have feathers, so they can't control their body heat. So you need a heat source. In this case, I have what's called a cozy coop. And I actually just acquired it this time, and it's been amazing. And it is an infrared heater. It looks like a TV. When we first put it in, my husband thought we put a TV in the bathtub. It's safe to touch, but it's warm enough to keep the chickens warm. And if you're keeping your chickens inside, it's also safer than a traditional heat lamp because there's no risk of fire with these. So in the right situation, the traditional heat lamp is totally fine. And otherwise, you might want to look at a heater like this. Mine cost $37, something like that. You'll also need special feeders and water. Baby chicks are kind of like baby humans. They need baby-proof kinds of things. And this feeder and water is particular to baby chicks. It's got a small space for water so that they don't drown. If you just put a bowl of water in there, they can drown. And a feeder, and then some sort of bedding. In this case, I have pine wood shavings, which is traditional for keeping birds. It's pretty inexpensive. And it's safe for them and it's clean. You don't want to use cedar shavings. That's the only trick with shavings. Cedar has oils in it that can be damaging to birds' respiratory systems and irritating to their skin. And then the only trick about this is when you first start out, you'll want to make sure that you have something to cover the pine shavings with if that's what you're going to use for bedding. Baby chicks, when they first arrive, they're 1 day old, so they're just learning what's food and what's not, and they're likely to eat the pine shavings. So for their first day or two of life, I like to cover it, the pine shavings. Some people use paper towels, which I've heard is really good. This year I used a dish towel, which I will not use in the kitchen again, but you can just cover the pine shavings. That way the chicks are safe, they won't eat the shavings, and they'll learn what's food and what's not. The one thing you don't want to use is newspaper, unless there are some different techniques, but I would just say for starters, don't use newspaper. Newspaper can be really slick, and baby birds can get what they call splay. It's damaging the ligaments in their leg, or even breaking their leg because it's so slippery. Then you'll need special food. In this case, I have chicken starter and grower, which is just a special grit. You'll see this bag was about $7, and that'll last you about a week with a flock of about 6. And that's all you need to get started.
Okay, that
Well,
seems
then you'll need your
fairly.
chicks.
Well, and where do you get the chicks from?
Well, you can get chicks from your local feed store. I got 3 of my chicks from Benedict's, which is one of my favorite feed stores up in Monroe. You can also order them online, which a lot of people do. MyPetChicken.com has been a great resource for me as well. If you do order them online, they will give you a shipping window, and I advise that you be free or flexible that entire shipping window, which is usually a few days, because often what will happen is you'll just get a phone call from the post office, so your local post office, that says your chickens are here, and they ship in a little box like this. So this box contained 6 chickens when it arrived. Let me see inside. They're just tucked in there. And they come with a little food and water source, but it only lasts them about a day, and it's getting warm. So you want to make sure you can pick up your chickens right away and get them out of this box and into their brooder.
Okay, so then once they're home and they've been sitting in the brooder/bathtub for a while, how long does it take to move the chickens outside?
Well, what you need is for them to be able to regulate their own body temperature. So that means you need all their feathers to come in. Their little down falls out, and you get their feathers in. And that's somewhere between 5 and 6 weeks, although it's getting warmer outside as well. So in the meantime, in those 5 or 6 weeks of life, you can take them out to give them a little outdoor space, let them run around, let them learn to dig in the dirt and eat grass. But you should always monitor them when you have them out, and to make sure both that they're safe from predators, because they're really vulnerable at that time, and also for temperature, because they will get chilly.
Sorry. What is the process for moving them outside?
Well, you'll need to have your coop ready to go. So I like to have my coop ready about a month before it's time to get out there, because it'll take about that long. But if you're just starting, you'll need to order or build a coop, or create a space maybe in a shed, which is what we've done. And then we created a little a door off that shed and a run off that. And then you just move them into their coop. I usually like to bring the heat source with them just so that they have the option. But again, it's getting warmer. So the biggest things you'll want to look out for is temperature on the other side. Is getting too warm. That's the thing that's most important to worry about in the summer. So in the summer, make sure that you're up early, get them let out so that they have an opportunity to get outside and can be in the shade outside during the day. But when you get them home, there's a few things that you want to make sure and do when you get your baby chicks home and into the brooder, right after they come out of that shipping box or you get them home from the feed store. And I want to make sure and point those things out. So the first thing that you'll do is you want to make sure they know how to drink. So you'll introduce and show them where the water is. So the first thing you'll do is you bring them home and you'll take each little chick and you'll dip their beak right into the water. So you'll just take each chick and take their beak and dip it into the water. And that's about all you need to know. That's about all they need to know to make sure that they know where the water is. But that's really important. The second thing you want to make sure and do is watch them a lot. And that might actually be my biggest piece of advice. You'll learn your chickens. You'll learn how they all behave, who sort of sits back, who seems to be cold and likes to be by the heater a lot, who's the boss. There is a pecking order in a flock of chickens, and one of them will be the boss. And it's the best thing for their health, because then you'll know if something's off. You'll also want to make sure and watch them, make sure that they all take a drink before you sort of leave them for the first time, because you want to make sure they all know how to drink. The other thing you'll want to do is watch them, make sure they're all just kind of eating and doing that thing. And then the final thing that's most important when you get babies that you'll read about when you get them, but is to look for pasting. And that's common with baby chicks. So pasting is when they poop and the poop gets caught in the feathers, and it can actually paste solid so that they can't relieve themselves. And that will make your bird very sick very fast, and it can ultimately kill them. So once or twice a day, you should always look for pasting. And that's done. I'll show you sort of simply how that's done. Hey girls, hey sweeties. So whenever you approach your flock, you want to be nice and slow, because they startle really easily, even if you know them. You also see they really like shiny things. See that they always peck my ring. So it's actually kind of fun to come in if you have a ring or something on. It's a nice way to kind of let them interact with your hand. The other thing I like to do is pet them from underneath. It's not as scary than when you come from above. So they get used to your touch like that. Hey girls. So, I'll show you about pasting, but one thing I wanted to point out is I told you I picked up 3 chickens from our local feed store. They are 2 weeks younger. So this chicken is 2 weeks older than this chicken. You can see the difference in development. It's really remarkable. That's the other thing I love about having chickens, is you really learn about development. Hey, sweetie. These girls are the youngest, but they integrated really well into the flock right away. So here's one of my younger ones. She's about a week and a half old. You want to make sure they always feel safe, so I like to kind of cuddle them up like this, but I'm not squeezing her. I'm holding really gently. Birds are pretty delicate. To check for pasting, you just tip them over and peek and make sure there's no manure there. And she is nice and clean. But that is one thing that you want to make sure and do with your flock a couple times a day, especially when they're new. After a week or two, they tend to be pretty good, but that's probably the biggest risk when you have babies.
Oh, they are so adorable.
Aren't they? I mean,
oh my
if this
gosh.
doesn't sell you, I don't know what will.
Oh, well, thank you, Anne, for sharing your expertise with the Westport community. And for those of you at home, remember that you can find more information about gardening, cooking, and check out the chick cam at Wakeman Town Farm's website. So you can watch baby chicks at the farm. And visit westportlibrary.org for easy lifestyle changes you can make while at home, author conversations, and other educational videos. Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you, Jennifer. It was fun.